Welcome to the Chips and Tips podcast. I'm Tim Paul from Toolpath, and today's guest is my buddy and colleague at Toolpath, Scott Moyse. Welcome, Scott. How are you doing
I'm
today?
good, thanks, Tim. I'm looking forward to chatting to you.
Good. I love your story. You and I have been close for a long time. I've respected the heck out of you as a professional. And on that note, let me give you. I like to start these off with my version of your bio. I come up with my version of your intro, and to be fair, I do give you the opportunity to make any corrections. So. With that, let entertain me
Sure.
for a second. So, when I think of Scott Moyse, I think super dork motorsports guy, hyper dork CAD guy, turned CNC yacht programmer machinist guy. That's an interesting story we'll get more into. But then when our paths crossed, I think you were kind of transitioning into super geek cam specialist, turned toolpath guy, post maker. I think most people in the fusion community, which is probably a big part of our audience, think of you as, the expert elite Autodesk University guy. Probably most people would relate you to HSM and Fusion. When I met you, you were super deep inventor and vault guy. I don't want to miss out. I consider you the current world title holder of the Cam Slam Challenge or whatever that was at IMTS. Move your head and show the belt in the background. I am not a jealous person, but I have to admit I have some jealousy.
That was a
for that.
surprise, and that belt is insane as well. Full legit leather title belt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Clinton.
I thought I thought it was worth calling out. I think you worked on an interesting project. You're a co-founder of ChipX, supplying tools and work holding to Aussie and Kiwi shops. And I really think you've lived a really interesting life of kind of an intersection of like the digital world and physical world, wrestling, CNC machines, business systems for a couple decades now, if I have that right. Now, here's where I'll end is now I've had the pleasure for a good while now of being colleagues with you. It's maybe a highlight of my life, Scott. So I think we're doing some really interesting things at Toolpath, and you've been a big part of that. So now, actually looking at my notes, this is a very interesting one. And I think you're an important part of this. I said, you're part of Toolpath, helping Toolpath grow without losing its soul, or losing our soul. So I thought that was an interesting call out because I think you are an important part of that. I think you and I care a lot about machinists. I think that's why Al brought us on. I'll leave with that. I'm a pretty rambly on these things. But now's your opportunity to fix anything that I screwed up. How about that?
That was actually kind of you nailed it. But it was kind of stranger than I imagined it to be. Like, I don't know if you ever saw it, or had it in the States, but in the UK there was a show called This Is Your Life, and I haven't even thought about it until just then, for years and years until just then. But it was like you reading that stuff out to me and doing such a good job of it, and like made me feel a bit like I was on that show. No, you should write my LinkedIn bio profile. Yeah, it was good.
Put me on it. Put me in, coach. I got this. You're an impressive person, Scott. When I think of you, I think about our relationship. It's probably been close to 10 years, right around 10 years, something like that. I knew about this CAD CAM geek over was it Australia? I think it was.
Yeah.
we'll get to that in a second, but yeah, you reached out to me to ask. I don't remember what it was. It was some Cam Geek question, but I had heard about you. I knew you were honestly. I was kind of intimidated by you because I'd heard so much about you. But the two things that stood out most to me were it was pretty clear you were like an advocate for the customer and like a real like attention to details kind of person. And I remember those were the two things where it was like me and this guy have to get to know each other because I think I share self-proclaimed, but I think I share similar
Yeah,
things I care
that
about. So
there was definitely an attraction, I suppose, between the two of us in that regard, like mutual kind of admiration and respect. Like it goes both ways, and that, and
yeah,
yeah, across all of that, really. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. So here's the format I have kind of written out. We're gonna do some, kind of icebreakery kind of intro questions. I like to go through a lightning round, and I have a really terrible job of keeping lightning fast, but we'll do that. And then I love to get into kind of your life career story. Not really like wanting to kind of go like I did this, then I did this, then I did this, but when I listen to people's life story, I love it. And that's why I kind of format my section of our Chips and Tips podcast to,
Right.
to,
Yeah.
to highlight that. But I'm always looking for like what makes Scott tick? Like what from your childhood? We don't have to get too personal about, our childhoods, but there's something I always say we're a product of our past. So I like to find like what's that thing that made Scott who Scott is. So we'll get into that. We'll look at kind of the future of our industry and we'll wrap it up. I try to keep it about 2 hours, a little shorter, a little
Yeah. We'll see how we
longer.
go.
It is what it is. Yeah. Okay. So we got through the first page of notes. Let's start with okay. So let's start with considering. Actually, I don't have any data on this, but I like to make things up. So I believe most of our listeners would be American
Yeah,
based.
probably. At the moment.
So I call you my Cornish Kiwi friend. What does that actually mean for any
Um,
Americans?
well, I'll start with the Cornish part. So people who are from Cornwall, which is a county in the southwest of England, are Cornish, and it's quite an interesting part of the UK. It's shaped like Italy, so it's kind of got like a boot thing going on with it, but just not quite as fancy. And It's only just attached to England by a short stretch of land because you've got the Tamar River splitting the running straight
Okay.
along the border. Um, we have our own language. It's Celtic based. And there were like half a dozen people in Cornwall who could still speak it when I was a kid, but there's a lot more that can speak it now. So it's similar to
Okay.
Welsh in that sense. There's for a very long time been discussions about trying to get independence from England, just like Wales and Scotland have for Cornwall. So there's a lot of passion down there. Um, we Cornish pasties are a big export, and clotted cream. There's a bunch of cliches there, but yeah, Cornish pasties are like the best. They're like a calzone pizza kind of thing, but they're a
Okay. Yeah.
meat pie effectively. Um, and there's
Got
some
it.
cool history behind them if you want to get into it. But yeah, and a
That's
big
cool.
big part of Cornwall kind of is history wise is pirates, King Arthur, and mining. So some of the biggest exports around the
Oh,
world from Cornwall, from a skills standpoint, and industry, was tin mining. And so loads of Cornish ended up
no
moving
kidding.
all around the world to some pretty crazy places, um, and to help people figure out how to dig stuff out the ground safely. And that's kind of like some parallels between Cornwall and New Zealand in that sense. Is New Zealand's part of the Kiwis, part of the Commonwealth, small place, smaller population, punches above our weight on a global stage quite often. And so yeah, Kiwis, there's
Got
a
it.
fruit, kiwi fruit, but then there's the Kiwi bird, and it's
Yeah.
more of a reference to the bird as our national kind of yeah animal. So, yeah.
I Oddly, I did know that, and I would bet money that most Americans did not know that. You said passion. That stood out to me. That's definitely, if I was writing a few words to explain Scott Moyse, passion would
I
come
can
up
get very
there.
passionate at times about
Uh,
certain things.
so it's a genetic thing.
Probably. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. And then Kiwi, we didn't really address that. How old were you when you moved
Yeah.
to
So I've been around a bit.
New Zealand?
Yeah, grew up in Cornwall, and lived in Europe, in France for a few years through my teenage years. Went back to Cornwall to finish school, then university in Wales in Swansea. Did that for 2.5 years, and then my mum met a Kiwi and then moved to New Zealand while I was at uni. And my two sisters and my brother came over with her. And I ended up coming over on holiday in Christmas 2003, 2004. And I would have been, we were 21 at the time.
Okay.
And yeah, I've been here
Okay.
ever since pretty much. I ended up dropping out of uni and moving over.
That's funny. I have a joke with you. It's not funny outside of me and you, but I call you the Aussie all the time. I kind of tapered off that. I think I played that out a little too much.
I blame Rob Lockwood for that more than anyone else, just to make that clear. Yeah.
Okay. It might be factual. And then we may have been tipsy at like the Round Bar or something like that in Vegas, and you dropped the Cornish Kiwi on me, and I remember stepping aside and
Oh yeah.
Googling that. Like, what does this mean? Okay, so moving on from that. Uh, the question I have is, what do you do day to day, Toolpath? What I'll add to that is, I would probably say anybody outside of probably just straight up developers at Toolpath. It's really impressive to me how many different hats we've worn, maybe
Hmm.
wear daily, and how agile. I mean, I can call out people by name, how agile many of us have been, and how much our role has changed. Um, we don't need a full story on it, but what were you hired to do at Toolpath? Kind of like, what are you mostly focused on now?
Um, well, I was hired as a revenue operations manager, which is kind of a weird term, doesn't really have huge amounts to do with revenue directly, but it's more about
Yeah,
kind of business systems to support sales, marketing, and customer success. Um, so I was hired to do that, which was kind of a departure from my previous role, but it's kind of
yeah,
an advantage to have somebody who understands the industry and the CAM market, kind of helping to build out some of those systems to ultimately build out customer success, or support customer success.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was hired to do initially. And Yeah, things have kind of evolved through the year, through more, well, I suppose it's like 16 months or something now. Yeah.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
close to a year and a half, right? Yeah.
Um,
Uh, Mostly, what are you focused on now? Like, what's your main kind of one or two bullet
um,
points?
Mostly just been trying to like move away from and tie up some loose ends with the RevOps stuff, and then get more into well, I should add that a big part of why I was hired as well, aside from the RevOps, was to do some kind of start setting up and managing a partner network and framework, because
Yeah,
of my experience in the Autodesk partner network. Um,
yeah,
and so now that's kind of come back into focus a little bit more, but more in the sense that kind of working with tooling vendors and ultimately work holding vendors to get more data into Toolpath for our customers to use out of the box. Yeah.
good. Good. I'm excited about that, and that's actually a good transition to my next question. Was like, this is almost a cheesy question, but I think it's important. Like, what does kind of fire you up most, kind of day to day at Toolpath?
Um, I mean, what I'm excited to build and create stuff that helps people more than anything else, right? And so
Yeah,
that doesn't matter whether that's internal tools or things for our customers to use. And so
yeah,
I really
mm,
enjoy solving problems, you know, or improving productivity. Um, and so yeah, that doesn't matter whether it's back end or front end. That's what gets me
yeah,
going really, and seeing people succeed and making a difference to people's day to day. Yeah,
yeah. I always think about my friendships, like why do Al and I, or Scott and I, or Justin and I, whatever, like connect in a certain way. That may have just explained part of that. You said you like to solve problems, you like tools, you like making tools to make people more productive. I've got like, I don't have a drug habit, but if I did, it would be like a tools thing. If you related my tools habit with drugs, I would have a garage full of cocaine or something. That's probably, I hope that doesn't get edited as a promo clip,
yeah,
but um yeah, I just love tools that make me make more awesome things. And since I got into the software business, yeah, I just get filled. My soul gets kind of happy knowing I'm helping people be more productive. So I think that that's something that you and I share.
yeah.
Um, what is this? I hate cheesy questions. Maybe this is a cheesy one. Uh, what problem inside a toolpath are you most obsessed with solving? Yeah, you're doing some really I'm not trying to spoon feed you this, but you're doing some stuff that I'm pretty excited about with the tool recommendation engine and kind of helping support that. Can you talk about that a little bit? Hopefully, that is aligned kind of with what you're excited about. Um, yeah, share some of that.
Um, yeah. I mean, there's there's some big challenges to figure out through that whole piece, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't think we have the answers yet, but one of the things that's I've definitely taken for granted and been frustrated by, but just kind of accepted as the status quo, I suppose, over the years of working in the CAM and manufacturing industry is this whole speeds and feeds and tool selection piece. It's just absolutely absurd, really, that it doesn't matter what
yeah,
product or CAM product or machine shop you're in. That's something that those are the decisions that are being made every day by you know, CAM programmers and machinists that for the most part they just really shouldn't have to. Um, and
yeah,
so yeah, that's what I'm really excited. I mean, we've got our tool recommendation engine, which is kind of is the starting point of showing that solving these problems is possible. Um, and we've got a long way to go, but that's that I'm, you know, really excited to make that, turn that into um, a feature that people take for granted. And in, you know, 5 years time, new generations of people coming into the industry would never know how bad it was beforehand. You know, it just, this is why wouldn't it have ever been like that? You know, why wouldn't it have always been like this sort of thing? There's a number of features in software where there's a lot of really clever things that go on in the background that people have solved, and um,
yeah,
it just a simple thing, like really simple example. You see it in early software, and we've got it in one area of ours right now with the sorting of tools is not by tool
mhm,
number; it's being sorted by like a string of text rather than numbers. You know,
yeah,
that's a when you see it there as a problem, it's, you know, it's annoying. But as soon as it's solved, nobody ever knows or talks about the fact that it was ever a problem or what it took to fix it. It's just
Yeah.
fixed now because that's the way it should be. And I think, you know, that's a really simple example of it, but I think that's where we're going to end up with tooling selection and speeds of feet in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. You said something. I have a terrible note taking, but I do write down things that like that sticks with me. And you said someday people will take it for granted, right? Somebody recently was explaining the process of kind of taking on a job. Like the first thing they do is go hunting for geometry that's going to kick their butt. Next thing they do is they go hunting for tools that'll fit that fit the different geometry. And it's like, man, if there was one thing that if I had fast forward not very much time, people should be taking for granted is, picking tools, setting, cutting parameters, things like that. Cutting parameters is a hairy problem. You know very well that it's something I've committed my career to understanding and sorting, and I'm excited about the work we have going there. But all right, looking at my notes, trying to keep this in some sort of organized thing. I did just handwrite in there. I've always thought of you as a customer advocate and a person that cared a lot about details. I don't know where I want to pick that up in our conversation, but be ready to talk about that. Okay, so this is my not very
I think
lightning round.
that's you're making it
Yeah,
your own, Tim.
yeah.
That's for sure. You're redefining what a lightning round is.
Yeah, yeah. I like, it's what it is. So here's the lightning round. We're gonna start with some themes, early sparks, kind of like what got you, what your early spark days, early career days, cam roots, shop, big things to talk about. So, we should be able to get through these. I just can't shut up. So, first CNC machine you ever saw in
Yeah.
action, maybe. How about that?
I don't think that I even really knew what a CNC machine was until I got to university.
Okay.
And I couldn't tell you what brand the machine was, but there was a 3-axis mill in kind
Yeah.
of a semi-locked away room on the second floor of the, you know, the building, that the engineering building.
On the second floor. Okay.
And there were, I don't even think we saw it, I don't even think it was moving at the time, but there was an alloy wheel on the table, and they'd been machining custom alloy wheels on it for one of the cars that they were running. But
That'll get a motorsports geek's
yeah.
attention.
So,
Yeah.
and it was more about, they were just showing us, because there was a small kind of like 6-week block learning about G code. And so they took us in to show us the machine that runs that. And it was like, the technician's pride and joy, but no one was allowed near it from a student standpoint. Yeah.
What do you remember thinking or feeling? Was there anything? Was there any like
Well,
excitement, or it wasn't running,
no,
so maybe
I
it
was
wasn't that
pissed off that I wasn't
exciting?
allowed to use it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I sat down in the first G code class, and I was like, well, this is really boring. And I'm not coming to another one of these classes. I'll just take these sheets, and when I need this at some point in my life, I will figure it out and use these sheets as a baseline for me to figure it out, and spent my time doing other stuff instead. Which
awesome.
I think was probably the right decision. I think I had enough intuition there to be like, this is not how it should work. And yeah, I'll park it until I need to know it later.
That's a good transition to you're frustrated you couldn't use it. So my next question is, what's the first CNC machine you did use?
It was an SCM Record 125 3-axis router.
Okay. Is this we'll get a little bit more. I don't want to blow the punchline of your background, but we'll get a little bit more to yacht talk. But is this yacht days?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna resist the urge to go deeper because it's lightning round. We'll circle back. First part you were ever proud of. How about that?
Um, so the the one thing that students did have access to at the university was the manual machine shop. And so there was like
Okay.
again, I'm not sure entirely what it was, but it was like it was a Bridgeport style manual mill. No DRO or anything. It was all fully manual, and lathes and a few manual lathes. And so I designed um, a steering wheel mounted paddle shift for our Formula Student car. But it was all mechanical using push pull cables. Um,
Oh,
manage the clutch and change gear on a Honda CBR 600 engine. Pretty
yeah.
ludicrous thing to come up with, but it worked. And while the clutch didn't end up working too well, but the shifter did. So we ended up moving the clutch off.
Okay.
But there was a part in there that so it was an aluminium kind of steering column, the main body of it. And then down the center of it, there was a brass piston, effectively, that the mechanical levers pushed and pulled. And inside that was a another brass piece that was encapsulated with two circlips that the push pull cable attached to, so it could move and it could spin freely inside the brass piston if it needed to. And I turned all those parts on, and I turned them on the lathe and then machined them on the mill. But when I was turning up those two brass parts, and I got that, that first kind of like I hit the tolerance perfectly, so that when I pushed the piston down inside the sleeve, it just popped back out.
Yeah.
That was a pretty proud moment.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty cool. And
That's cool.
um, yeah, and so it was neat.
That's
That
cool.
was a nice moment. But overall, that whole assembly, the fact that I machined all of that by hand, and was a pretty proud moment. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. So now what's the next thing that you remember thinking? Maybe you just answered it, but like, what was the first time in the machining and design kind of space where you were like, man, I think I'm actually good at this. You remember that moment? Was it when you slid the thing in, the piston in and it
um. Well, I guess I did. I guess I did feel that at that point. Um, I
Mhm.
think just kind of like I did some work with my dad, um, on parts for his race cars and stuff when I was a kid. Um, you know, one of the main f- kind of vivid memories is learning how to flare, um, copper pipes for, and putting brake nipples and stuff on, and doing the whole hydraulic
Yeah.
system on his car. Um, and just the kind of like attention to detail, and just like um but also just like the confidence that if I apply myself, um to and care about those details, then I can pull off a good result. And so yeah, I did. I felt like that running the lathe, and making those parts, and then pull it. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I can do this. Um, but
That's good.
um, that was a uni, right? So when I professionally, I think that um the nervousness around, it's kind of another story really, but the moment we ran a first real program and a real part on the router at work, um bearing in mind that it was an environment where, the owner, it was another startup. The owner had invested a significant chunk of money on, this CNC machine, uh
Yeah.
and took a punt on me and the operator to get this thing running, and to, which is a key part of transforming the business. Getting that part running within the first week, and just being like, yeah, I got this. I can, I'm good at this stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that was probably the
That's
first
all.
professional moment where I felt like that.
That's awesome. When I think through thinking about my life or my day or whatever, I try to end with a positive because I think there is something really real to like sports psychology and our own psychology, but I screwed this one up because my next question is uh what was what was one time where you felt like, man, this is way harder than I was ready for?
Um, Getting promoted as probably the second youngest person in the design office to run the design office, and realizing
Mm,
how hard it is to manage humans.
yeah. That almost ties into the statement I just
Yeah,
made, right? I mean, humans
yeah. Um, you
are a
know,
heck of a
there are
thing. Yeah.
11 staff, ages ranged between 21 and 65 across 6 different
Mm.
nationalities. And I was
No
like,
way.
I would have been 26 or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was challenging. So it was a mixture of, people some being upset that I got it over them, um,
Mhm.
me being very naive, um, being too abrupt with people, um, you know, but also an
Mm, yeah.
expectation of them from me to work as hard as I did, and just kind of having a low tolerance for
Yeah.
that. Even if I didn't say it, it probably
Yeah.
came across in my attitude sometimes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, that was a lot harder than I learned
Human
a lot of hard lessons there.
is there one thing that you were like, "That changed my perspective on life," that just stands out?
Um,
Sorry to put you on the
I mean,
spot there.
that's a set, yeah, quite a different question, right? So, um,
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and it's fine if, like, nothing jumps right out to you,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I suppose that like in that same context, it's that work life balance and just realizing and appreciating that other people don't um, put the same value on working those extra hours, obscene hours sometimes just to better yourself. They'd rather spend it doing other things, and they're just nine to fivers, and that's fine, like
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
I wouldn't say I don't I'd say accept that for what it is, but not as in a defeatist way. It's a good thing that there's people like that, and there's a lot to learn from them as well. So, and I think that's probably the life moment
yeah,
is that, for people who do work obscene hours, there's something to learn from the people who do the 9 to 5. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that was, we're in the lightning round, but I'll add anyways. Yeah, young in my life, I was given kind of a management role over just a say just, but it was a bicycle shop, and I remember feeling like, "Don't you guys want more? Like, just learn
Hmm.
more and be more." And my boss actually said, "The world, everybody can't be a
Yeah.
manager, right? The world needs people that just want to show up, do
Yeah.
their work, and go home." And that was a life kind of changing,
That's right. Yeah.
perspective for me. So let's get into your CAM roots a little bit. So what was the first CAM system that you
Well, I
used?
suppose technically it was SRDC Ideas at uni, which ended up being bought by Ford, used it, and Siemens acquired it, and it became part of what is NX today.
Really?
Um,
No
and
way.
that was an integrated CAD CAM system, um, and
Okay.
it was awful. Like the CAM stuff was just a passing, like, okay, here it is. You can do this stuff in here, but the course is more focused on CAD. The first CAM program that I used, that I actually, created a real program in that we ran on a machine, was Alpha Cam. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Cool. I've been around for over 10 years in the CAM industry, just the CAM industry, since 25 or so in the machining industry. I thought I'd heard of almost all CAM systems. Alpha Cam I've heard of. The first one I hadn't. So, um, how about this? The number of different CAM systems you've used. You've been around a little while.
yeah. Well, it's definitely not as many as you and James have used. That's for sure. Yeah. Honestly, really, it's
That's
only
okay. I wouldn't wish it upon many people, by
Yeah.
the way.
It's only been AlphaCam and then the Autodesk products, really. Yeah,
No
so
kidding. Okay.
um, I I I opened up Mastercam a couple of times to we like back in 2007 when it was a great experience actually. It didn't go anywhere, but we were looking at buying a 5-axis router, so I did a lot of research into different types of routers and software to
Okay.
drive them. I kicked around a bit with
Hmm.
Mastercam then, um, but didn't really, just I was like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
similar to AlphaCam. It was funny hearing James talking about the X, when it went through because that back then it was just, I think X was just coming onto the scene. So yeah, I was like,
New
yeah, okay,
thing. Yeah.
I'm old enough to know about that transition.
Yeah. 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 Oh man, I always forget about it, to be honest. I use Mastercam, but I think I'd have to go back and look. I think 7 years, and it was a little in, a little out, a little in.
I think that was the point where
Um,
it went from being
yeah,
more of a DOSy type, Windows 3.1 type product to modern
yeah,
UI. I can't remember.
yeah,
Maybe X was the first one to have a ribbon, I think. Yeah,
yep. Uh, yeah, yes. Oh man, and
yeah,
James would be the person I would text to ask. What I will say about X, it's the first time it felt like
yeah,
it was
yeah,
current. Before that, it definitely felt like the user experience
yeah,
was older. Um, I'd used a bunch. Mastercam was not one of the ones I hated. They were all just tools to me. Mastercam was one I fed my family with and did well with, so I don't
yeah,
speak poorly of it. Um, you said the Autodesk products like that's a one tool.
yeah,
We
yeah,
both know.
exactly.
Uh, I'll just start. You have the HSM family of products, right? You can almost count that as one. You have HSM Works, Inventor HSM, and Fusion. All felt very
Yeah.
similar. Did you use anything outside of those three?
Um,
Because you also have what Feature
no, so I mean,
Cam.
I did look at
Uh,
FeatureCam briefly when I was doing that work. I looked at
mhm,
PowerMill a good amount alongside. It was really between Mastercam and PowerMill.
yeah.
Um, so I was familiar enough with PowerMill to understand kind of like the concept of how it worked and all the rest of it. And then I did kick around with it a little bit once it became a part of the Autodesk portfolio, but it wasn't my
Hmm.
focus. I do want to add that
You didn't have to
in that
support it
period
or anything.
that 2007 period, I actually messed around quite a bit with Top Solid, um, because I had
Really?
this project. Air New Zealand wanted to do a mock-up for a Boeing 787 interior, so that
Oh yeah,
and had
yeah.
to deal with some data. I mean, I was looking at Top Solid because they've got a really cool wood module, and
Hmm.
they did integrated cam. So that was the first kind of like modern integrated CAD CAM product that I came across, and I learned about it when I was at I think it's AWFS, as a woodworking show in Vegas, and it was the
Okay,
only product across all of the ones that I looked at that could nest 3D solids and then apply a 5-axis toolpath to the parts in the nest, which is what I wanted to
that's cool.
achieve with the 5-axis router at
Yeah,
work. Um, and for years and years until really Fusion came along and integrated nesting, that was the only product that I was aware of that could nest 3D solids and apply
that's cool.
5-axis toolpath. So sorry, it was a bit of a tangent, but so yeah,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
like
yeah.
in the Autodesk
That's cool.
stable, it was HSM Works, which meant that I used SolidWorks a little bit at uni, but I got familiar with SolidWorks again as a result of HSM Works. Then
Yeah.
kicked around a little bit with Inventor Cam. At that time, most of it was HSM Works.
Oh,
And
okay.
then yeah, more and more Inventor Cam, and then Fusion from the very beginning, really. Cam
Yeah,
360, as it was called.
yeah,
It was actually an independent product, not part of the Fusion install.
yeah. Anybody want to know more about that history? I did one of these
Yeah.
with Kevin Schneider, and that got into that a bit. I learned that in kind of doing some prep work for that interview with
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Schneider. Uh, I went from HSM Works customer to working at Autodesk, supporting HSM works, having to kind of do a little bit with Inventor HSM, and then supporting Fusion. So to me, it was Fusion manufacturing or Fusion CAD or CAM. Let's get into the shop a little bit. We haven't talked about it yet. I think we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but you've done a lot of post processors. You've helped a lot of shops be successful. One of the things I was always drawn to you about was, I've heard some tremendously nice things about you from your customers. And that's always fun for me to hear. But you were known for quite some time of being quite the post-process developer. So let's just throw out the question, like, what's your favorite machine that you've worked with? CNC machine. There could be a lot of reasons it's a favorite, right?
Yeah. I don't have one.
Okay, that's totally fine as well. Do you have any that you hate?
Well, that's the thing.
I
think
try not to
every
go
single
negative,
machine out
but
there, if we're all honest, like most people will have a love-hate relationship with them.
That's actually a great point. That's a great point.
And that's been the case of every CNC machine I've ever interacted with. I think if you had to put me on the spot, like kind of the most fun, impressive machine that really kind of took my breath away, that I've always kind of appreciated being around, is a robo drill. Yeah.
Oh,
I just like
that's
the
interesting.
speed and
It's always interesting what people pick.
It's just, and then and there's no speedios down here. So yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a shame, but they're just impressive bits of kit. They're scary fast.
Yeah.
Keep you on your toes.
I very much agree.
In general, I think any turn mill lathe, I'm kind of off. They're just impressive bits of kit, and they're all frustrating.
I know you've helped people sort out some pretty hairy turn mill machines. I would have bet $1 that you were going to go that direction. No, I actually appreciate that you went robo drill. Some of my most favorite machines are just pretty basic machines. I have favorites, but and I have a couple that I don't think should have ever been made.
The thing that's really cool about the robo drill is it's so mechanical, right? And it's the mechanical aspect of it that makes it really fast in a lot of ways, on the tool change. So it's cool. It's a cool bit of kit.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite tool? I've got favorite tools. Sometimes it's a hand tool. Sometimes it's, I have a tool habit, like a drug habit. Do you have any favorites? Oh man. I would not have said that, but it's the one that I go for the most. No, that's a good one. That came out of left field for me. I don't know if you catch the baseball references. Something in machining that absolutely kicked your butt. Is there any?
Yeah, trying to sort speeds and feeds for plywoods. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. It's full throttle, right?
Yeah, until you have some like salty old machinist or cabinet maker out in the shop complaining about how shit the edges on this part that's come off the CNC machine, because they've now got to sand it with a block to get it to a good enough quality to be able to clash it with a solid piece of solid timber and not have a glue joint. And oh my god.
Oh, that's interesting. I would not have guessed that one. Here is one thing I have learned, is that wood is, I haven't respected wood as much as I should. You and I had very similar jobs. You worked for CAD Pro, I worked for Autodesk, where I imagine you got thrown some curveballs that you never imagined you would be helping people through. Wood was one of the curveballs that I didn't respect enough. You probably still don't respect enough, but it kicked my butt a little bit.
Yeah, I mean they're huge. They're hugely
All
wide
right.
ranging, right? They're kind of organic. They're different every time, and they go from
Yeah.
being harder
Yeah.
than steel to softer than plastic. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good one. I'm glad you brought that one up. Okay. Sticking with the lightning round. How do you know how many Autodesk universities you've been to?
I have actually I've lost count, but it's like I think it's
You
like
can make it up.
14 or 15. And
Yeah.
I've been lucky to go to some pretty cool ones, and they used to do AU extensions back in the day as well, and I've done a few of those too.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. So in our early relationship, I remember just being very impressed at the level of commitment of you guys coming over from New
I was
Zealand.
pretty I've been very lucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've shared some awesome times at Autodesk University as well. I'm going to call out, I'm not here to fluff you up, Scott, but maybe one of my favorite Autodesk University classes. I'll leave some margin just because I'm maybe forgetting one. You did one, and I found it this morning.
Oh
Getting
yeah.
tipsy. You
That was a
did
fun one.
one. Maybe, yeah, it was a fun one. It's basically like a lightning round, but actually a lightning round of quick fusion tips. Anybody using Fusion, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't go to Google right now and find that. There was a couple that looked like they were from Asia or something. There's one with the blue headers on it. If you're going, find Scott's document there. I think you've been known for making really good documentation. There's a really good document that's still out there in the internets, called Getting Tipsy. If you're Googling it, I would say Getting Tipsy AU class, Scott Moyse. You'll find some good stuff
Yeah,
there.
thanks. Yeah, it's all based
Yeah.
on different.
Yeah.
There's a famous AutoCAD drawing with all of the different cocktails. Um, and so that's where the getting tipsy comes from. So I reproduced that drawing in 3D in Fusion, and then integrated a whole bunch of tips and tricks into each one of those to show how that all got made.
Got it.
So it was
And that makes it even
yeah,
more
it was
awesome.
all for parametric and stuff as
I
well. So all of the 3D bodies for all the
Yeah.
different ingredients for the cocktails are all driven.
I learned, and I'm a super dork fusion guy. I learned, I don't even know how many things. I was like, I'm gonna pretend like I've just always known that.
Thanks.
I was like standing in the back of the class, probably showed up late or whatever. Do you have any? I mean, I very clearly have some career turning points. Like, I can put a flag in the ground and be like, man, my whole career changed at this point. Do you have like one or two that really stand out for you?
Um, I don't really think there's anything that, at the time I felt like that was like a pivotal moment. In retrospect, looking back on it, I can say that they were. And so,
It never felt like it was
yeah,
at the time for me. It was
yeah.
always looking back.
So I
Yeah.
think kind of like the biggest contributor was I kind of lightly got into some forums with AlphaCam, but
Okay.
they were kind of difficult to get into, like, and be passionate about. But it wasn't until I kind of discovered you know, how good the Autodesk forums were and the inventor community, and really
Okay.
got stuck into that. And then that kind of then grew into me getting into blogging with a good friend of mine, John Evans in Florida, and really kind of kicking off the
Oh yeah.
designandmotion.net blog. And that Twitter was kind of the big social platform in that regard at the time, and just tons of conversations about CAD
Oh,
and
cool.
data management and PLM. And so that kind of exposure really kind of poured gasoline on my career, and created, you know, exposed me to a whole bunch of awesome people at Autodesk, and created a lot of opportunities for me. So getting involved in the Autodesk community is what made a huge difference in my career.
That's really interesting, Scott. That makes me want to like put some thought into that part of my career as well. By nature, I'm a lot of people don't think I am, but I'm a little bit more of a recluse kind of person. And coming to Autodesk, I kind of embraced, just being a more of a public person. So I'll have to do some self-reflection on that one. What would you say is the most important moment of your life so far? Outside of work, inside of work?
Well, I'm cheating a little bit here because I listened to your podcast with James, and then you just gave it away then. So 110% meeting my wife.
Good answer. This is me setting a friend up for either success or
Because
failure.
if it wasn't, and my wife will know this as well because she knows me better than anyone else. That if I hadn't have been aware of that conversation with James and then you giving the hint just then, I probably would have been on a one-track mind towards talking about work. But yeah, and then the the moment where just being in hospital with my wife and finding out that my son was not a miscarriage and that we were on a track towards having a child together finally was pretty epic.
That's awesome.
So, and then my daughters are game changers for dads, man. Like, yeah.
Dude, my daughter turns 18 today.
Cool.
So
happy birthday, Katie.
I share a decent amount about my relationship with Katie, and that's a big one for me. I've been doing a lot of life reflections. Changed my life more than anything ever, but gave me focus like I've never had and everything. So I like to get a little personal here and there. Good, you passed. So
but professionally, I think I'd have just to add that, in there, I think that was probably the moment where I was standing in the middle of the design office at SMI and having the competitor to our CAD reseller call me at like 1 PM and ask me whether I wanted to go work for them. I'm like, let's talk later after hours. Give me a call back later. And that ended up being kind of the catalyst to me working for CAD Pro and getting to work for an Autodesk reseller honestly has been one of the biggest privileges of my working life because of what you get exposed to. And I think a lot of people see Autodesk or any software reseller in a negative light, but it's a huge opportunity, and it's very cool the stuff you get exposed to. So that was a big moment.
The exposure and opportunities I've had through Autodesk it helped me get to Toolpath. I would be split between, I have a moment where I remember like, oh, I'm going to be a machinist. That was a big one for me. And then the day that I decided like, am I literally going to leave being a machinist to go work on software? Those were the two big ones for me. Do you have any like, I'd call it like a suffer fest moment where you were like questioning, what you were doing, then you ended up looking back feeling like that was totally worth it? And the way I like to roll is this could be anything. This isn't me serving you up for right or wrong answers. So much of our life is work, right? So it's easy to be focused on that, but however you want to answer it, it's totally fine.
I mean, I'll say there's been a few sufferfest moments with running. I used to hate running, and I got into running in kind of late 2018. But but I've done a couple of ultra marathons, and actually the last one I did, I need to get back on the horse. But the last one I did was running around a volcano in the middle of the North Island.
Man.
I did a really good job of compartmentalizing all the different stages through that. But once you get to like 50, once I got to like 55 kilometers, and I'm like, it's been like 11, 12 hours of running, it starts to get really, really hard. And there was a point there when I'm running through what is effectively a desert. And I'm like, why do I feel so weird? And I realized it was because I wasn't breathing, because my feet hurt so much that every time I, put a step forwards while I'm jogging, that I'm holding my breath because of the pain that's about to come through my feet with every single step. So I was just holding my breath too much. I'm just like, okay, I've got to breathe. So that was, but at the end of it, I'd kind of hidden myself from the realities of what I was about to put myself into and put myself through. And all the way through the whole 75 kilometers of that journey. And then when I finished and saw my wife at the finish line, that it just kind of like everything just came through me, and I realized what I'd actually just pulled off. And then thinking back on the whole experience is completely, and it's the people have done way more impressive things than that, but for me it was huge. And I'm just like, that was insane. That was pretty, I mean, I would do it again. So yeah,
That's awesome. This isn't I already called it. It's not going to be a quick lightning round, but I watched you go through being maybe a little doughier than you wanted to be. I remember we were, messaging each other. I think I was going through like, hey, I need to focus on my health. You and I were kind of finding that at a similar time in different ways, right? And it was fun for me to watch you become ridiculously obsessed with hating yourself and running. I don't get running. I do lots of stuff that's miserable, but I do not understand running.
I think it's easy. It's
and it was
easy to
fun for me to watch
associate
you do.
running with, hideous burning in the lungs and pain and sweat, and because most people end up trying to run too fast too soon, right? But being out in nature, running through like jogging, I should say, through the trees, taking your time, and being able to move through terrain that's not a concrete pavement, at a reasonable click is pretty enjoyable, and a privilege. But it takes a lot of work to get to the point where it is enjoyable, right? Because it's hard work. It takes patience.
Yeah, for a long time I've said like sign up for hard shit and figure
good.
out how to do it. I really feel like life is different and better, on the other side of doing something really hard.
So what I was going to answer that with that question with was how I got my first job in New Zealand. Was a Sufferfest. That ended up being worth it.
Really?
So my CAD
Tell me about
tool of
that.
choice was not of choice, but through necessity. And I think for a lot of people around the same sort of time was AutoCAD, because it was just so easy to get hold of. And I knew like 12 commands in AutoCAD to model stuff in 3D. And I'd modeled up some of the Formula Student stuff, the Formula SE stuff in AutoCAD. And my mum was getting a horse float made, like a horse trailer, by a local here in New Zealand. And she'd heard that he was trying to get a boat built, like a big boat, and needed to figure out and he had a set of drawings for an interior, and then all of the lines drawings for the frames and stringers and everything for the hull and the superstructure. And he wanted to know whether the interior would fit inside the boat. And I was like, yeah, I can do that in AutoCAD. Give me those drawings and I'll charge you $1,000 New Zealand dollars. So not a lot of money, and I'll get it done in a week. Like, I had no idea what I was in for. And anyway, like 30% of the interior wouldn't fit inside this boat, and I probably slept, I don't know, maybe 8 hours through the whole week. Like it was just obscene amounts of work doing all this to a level of detail that I was satisfied with giving a good answer. Um, but I got it done, and then when
Yeah.
I went for my job interview at SMI, like a week later, the design manager asked me what experience I had in the marine industry, and I said, well, nothing until now, but I just did this job last week. I can't remember the name of the boat now, but he asked me the name of, I said, oh,
Yeah.
which boat was that for? And I told him, and he kind of went white in the face. And I was like,
Really?
what's the matter? He goes, I was meant to bid on that job, but I ran out of time before I went to the Fort Lauderdale boat show in Florida. And so I, lippy 21-year-old just turned around and said, well, you better hire me then, otherwise I'll keep stealing jobs off you. And I got the job.
Oh, I love it. I
But I
love it.
never,
That's
ever,
awesome.
ever, ever did anything like that in AutoCAD ever again. Yeah, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Oh, interesting. Awesome. Two more for the lightning round. So the one is, this is an interesting one, is there something, if anything, and no is fine, is there something that makes you like trust someone instantly?
I mean, seeing somebody else helping others, um, like spontaneously with no clear expectation to get anything in return, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. That's
But
a good one.
it's hard. Like life, I think anyone will teach you that. I mean, try and trust first before anything else. But there's many examples that you end up experiencing where you think that you can trust somebody and they don't end up following
Yeah.
through on that.
Yeah, I have a life principle that I start by giving people trust, but I actually don't think I
Yeah,
do, to be honest. In my head, I say, people start with good intentions and stuff like that, but I question, how much I follow that. All right, and a fun one to end. Best F1 driver ever. I
yeah.
noticed your hat, by the way.
Um,
Come on, that's a freaking
yeah.
quick and easy
Well, I
one,
mean,
Scott.
it's as an F1 fan, it's a difficult one to answer. There's a lot of nuance to that. I think a lot of people would say, and I would also say
I know.
probably Ayrton Senna, but I don't think he lived long enough,
Yeah,
unfortunately, to really prove that to everyone. Um, I think that
yeah.
these days, Lewis Hamilton, which is a pretty controversial thing to say, but the thing that
Mm,
I like about the way he's gone about winning his titles versus, say, Senna and Prost did is that for all of Lewis's negatives and his occasional whining and all the rest of it, the thing that he has very clearly demonstrated to younger racing drivers coming through is that you can win without being an asshole. And he's
mm.
he's won each one of his titles with integrity and not by trying to drive somebody else off the track deliberately. And there'll be Max Verstappen
Oh,
fans and all the rest of them would argue with that, but like fundamentally,
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
case. So for that reason, I
I
think
like it.
he's the greatest of all time.
I like it. I'll stick with Mario Andretti. But,
He was cool. Mario's cool. Yeah,
America,
I was going
America.
to say Scott Speed as well. Just fun.
Well, I actually have shared a
Yeah,
track with Scott Speed back in my day. I don't know how much we
yeah,
were sharing, but I have spent time on the track. Scott Speed's American go-kart racer, turned Formula One, turned lots of other stuff. He's a good dude. All right, lightning round's done. That
yeah. I
was a long
contributed to
lightning
the
round.
length of that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think either of us are good at shortening conversations. Um, all right, let's move into your life, and I'll frame this with, I want to talk through your story, kind of your early days, and more looking for like patterns or threads that make Scott who Scott is. I learned early in my days at Autodesk, honestly, where I would do a workshop and be like, "Hey, let's go around the room, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself." And all of us have an amazingly interesting, bio. We're not looking to hit any bullet points, but what I really want to do is try to figure out my own way. What makes you tick. So let's start with, I have a saying, we're all a product of our past. I'm sure I stole it somewhere in a book I read or something, trying to figure out my own childhood. But where did you grow up? What kind of kid were you? It would be interesting to hear how you explain yourself as a youngster.
Um,
And let's focus it a little bit on, like, what kind of kid were you that kind of got you to where
yeah.
you are today, if that helps you.
I mean, I think I was always curious, and confident, in my abilities. Um, or I was interested in doing lots of different types of stuff. I wasn't particularly sporty. I wasn't really very good. I'm terrible at ball sports, as you know, Tim. You've seen me trying to put a basketball in a hoop. Yeah, yeah,
Did you see
yeah.
the
One of the
surprise
lowest points in my
I
life
tried to push
was
out?
in Chicago with you and George Roberts. Like, I mean, just missing hoop after hoop. It was just demoralizing. Because I'm not that great at ball sports, but I'm highly competitive, so it just hurts every time. Yeah.
It's a bad combo.
Um, and like, so I think, both my parents owned businesses. That's one of my kind of biggest surprises in my life so far, is that I've been an employee, in my professional career the entire time. I've never been, self-employed, and that being my only source of income. So I never imagined that for myself, I don't think. But so both my parents running their own businesses. My mum was very entrepreneurial. My dad ran a garage, and he took that on from his old man, my granddad. And
Oh, this idea, I haven't
so
heard that before.
my granddad passed away before I was born, but um, so that kind of, my dad worked in that garage, but it kind of landed in his lap because his dad died unexpectedly. I learned some stuff about that, like not too long ago, that I didn't realize. But so that kind of just created that environment of kind of like a can-do attitude, and curiosity and learning. So that also came with its negative sides. I've definitely got myself into trouble through some of that stuff as well. But
Yeah.
learn some of those mistakes the hard way. Um, I'm a fan of, and this comes from the motorsport side of things, is looking for loopholes is in regulations and rules is always
Now we're
fun.
talking.
And
Yeah.
and that's probably where things have got me in trouble in the past. So in some areas as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. You briefly touched on what your dad did in his business.
Yeah.
What
So my
about your
mum,
mom?
as soon as she left school, she started up a business doing a baker, and set up a bakery and supplied
Okay.
some, um, a lot of restaurants around Cornwall. And
Yeah, cool.
and then she got into various other things after that, I think. But a big formative part of my eldest sister. I'm the eldest of four, but so the older of my two sisters is one closest to me. For us to, my mum set up a kindergarten, so looking after kids, and so
Okay.
after, I think, probably about 2 years, moved to our house, but we had an extension built on the back of the house, which is, the building was the same size as our house, and then a big triple garage
Yeah.
behind that for my dad. And so watching
Cool.
builders putting that together, like, TV was pretty limited back then. There was no computers or anything like that. So I'd go out and sit there and
Yeah.
watch builders and pester them and ask them why they're doing this, that, and the other. And similar stuff when we went into town to my dad's garage. And so, I think that's just, look, always wanting to learn and pick at things and understand why things are, or
That's
how
cool.
things work, I think, is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me realize my dad built houses for my grandfather and a job. I don't think I've ever given that enough credit for who I am. I'll have to put
Mm.
some thought into that. What were you the kind of kid that I almost every machinist person in our designing and machining kind of world grew up kind of tinkering, taking things apart. Were you that kid, and like what kind of things were you first wrenching on or whatever?
Actually, it's funny. This isn't by design, but and this is actually quite shameful. But I did a lot of these sorts of things when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
All sorts of different models. So gluing and painting and putting things together. Um,
Hmm.
that one there I've had for like 20 years and I've still not finished it, so I need to
No,
rectify that at some point.
no
But
way.
I did a lot of those kinds of
That's
kits and
awesome.
lots of Meccano and stuff like that. And then obviously anything I could get my hands on of toys wise that I could be disassembled, I'd end up taking stuff apart and trying to put it back
Yeah.
together again. Um, but yeah, just and then working with my dad in the garage on some of his racing cars and stuff was yeah, I did just
That's cool.
learning that you can do stuff with your hands if you just sit down and give it a go. And yeah,
And you had encouragement from your parents to like just take stuff
no,
apart,
I don't
or
think so.
how
I
does
don't
that
think they're
work?
that stoked about
Yeah.
me taking stuff
Okay.
apart.
Okay.
Um, I don't ever really get it being told off in a big way for it, but just yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Um, is your mom um, is your mom the kind of person that like likes to fix
Not
things,
no,
or
that's probably
was
more my
like
dad's side of
that's what
things,
dad
but
does?
on my mum's
Yeah.
side, it was
Yeah.
more around. She would talk to me a lot about her business. And
Hmm. Hmm.
ask me questions about get my opinion on the way things were going or some new ideas that she was trying to bring into the business. Um,
That's really interesting
yeah,
to me, Scott. You've mentioned that at some point before.
well,
Like,
it
tell
was
me
kind
more
of
about that.
I it was normal for me at the time, but I suppose like for somebody from the age of like 7 through to 10, they were quite adult conversations to be having, which got me into trouble
Yeah.
in some ways when I heard adult conversations or she would talk to me about other stuff non-business related and then I'd repeat that to other people and there were things that I shouldn't be telling people. I got into quite a bit of trouble a couple of times, just kind of like I suppose
Yeah.
gossipy or innocently mentioning something that I shouldn't have mentioned. But so that was a double-edged
Yeah.
sword, I suppose, in that regard. I don't know if my mum ever made the connection that maybe that's why I felt like I had license to talk about it. But it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
cool because her talking to me about that stuff just got me opened my eyes up to a lot of how things work in the world and what's possible. So
Yeah. Let me think. So I'm thinking of, I first of all, I think of you as, I, I think of you as a machinist, and I've heard you say less flattering things about that, about like your own perspective of yourself as a machinist. How do you see yourself in the machining world?
yeah,
It's
well,
not a very great question. I'm
I
sorry.
don't see myself as a machinist at all. Um, I've made stuff and I've never really ran. I've ran manual metal machines, but I'll never professionally run a CNC mill or a lathe. Um, so
It's
I've always
interesting. Yeah.
programmed them or written posts for them, but it's always been somebody else responsible for running them. Um, yeah, apart from that router, that 3-axis router. So, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think that qualifies me as a machinist at all. There's so much more stuff to know and learn and knowledge that machinists have that I don't have, and I don't need to either. In a lot of ways, because I can just ask people like you.
Yeah. The interesting thing is I see myself almost similar. Like I'm pretty accomplished machinist in a lot of ways, but there's so much I don't know. And I guess maybe I should admit I'm probably a little like loose with like To me, like, well, there's some machinists who are like, no, he's an operator, he's a programmer, he's not a
Right.
machinist, he can't do this or this. I don't know, man. If you're helping people with machining stuff, I don't know. You're part of the machine
Yeah,
community. I'll say
that's
that.
fair.
And
I've definitely helped a lot of
you've definitely
machinists.
made a big impact there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I come from. So, one thing I know about you, it's a little uncomfortable, and I think we share similarities because it's probably a strength and a weakness. I get obsessive about little details sometimes. I think it's one of the things I appreciate about you, and maybe sometimes it frustrates me
Mm.
about you. I say that very lightly, but talking about like our childhood, I can pretty directly kind of tie back to little things from my childhood about why I'm obsessive about like little mechanical details and stuff. Do you feel like you have an understanding from your youth of like why you
Well,
so and I say that pretty affectionately, but like I've seen you like really care about details that maybe other
I
people
think it's
don't.
like I think one of my things my dad used to say a lot was, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly, and so um
Yeah. Yeah.
even just like cleaning pots and pans or cleaning the barbecue, if you're doing it, do it properly, like every time, so um
Yeah.
and that's kind of been one of the things that I've had to um you know let go of through my career, and probably more so, you know in a startup environment at Toolpath than I ever have had to before. And it's quite easy
Yeah.
to obsess over something in the moment, and when I say the moment could be, multiple weeks, um, and not be able to see the wood for the trees and realize that it's not, something that actually needs to be done now or even needs to be taken that far.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where,
Yeah.
passion, I suppose, for detail can become your enemy. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it has with me. Yeah, I wrote what you just said down about your dad. I jokingly say anything worth doing is worth overdoing. But anything worth doing is worth doing
Mm.
right. Yeah, I think how that manifests with me is many times I'm like, I'm just not going to do it.
Mm.
So I can't, I can't overdo it or do it right. Like I just have a lot of things that are like
Yeah.
not quite done because I'm like, oh, I'll wait until I have time to to do it proper.
But that's actually a good point, and something I've thought about bringing up is that, um, like, in the late '90s, I did a bit of coding for web design, a bit of HTML mostly, and
Okay.
then when I got to SMI, there was there was a number of doing the super yacht interiors. There was a number of cases where I wanted to get into doing some development for add-ins for AutoCAD Inventor and AlphaCam,
Okay.
which was a lot more complex from a coding standpoint. But I never, even though I had like lots of books and I tried reading this stuff and learning about things, but even in the early days there, like YouTube was very formative. So like books was still the
Yeah.
primary source of information. Um,
Yeah.
I never, I I let that kind of mentality stop me from making progress because I could never get started because I always felt like I needed to understand more of how it all worked, the underlying frameworks worked
Yeah.
before I felt like I could do what I needed to do properly to get the result that I'd expect, instead of just bloody starting and doing something. Um, so
Yeah.
that desire and that need to understand how something works, instead of just accepting that when you put these two things inside this box, you get this result at the other end. If I'd have been more, um, you know, pliable on that with around that mentality, I would have got into coding a lot sooner. Yeah, that was kind of one of the interesting things I heard, like
Yeah.
when I listened to Justin talking
Yeah.
about coding. He had a similar kind of story there as well. In a way, it was kind of interesting. He made that leap, and
Yeah.
I didn't. I let that stuff get in my way. Yeah.
That's interesting. I can apply that to my own life in a lot of ways. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things that I've like, man, I want to understand this better, and it's kind of kept me from I want to be an expert at everything I do, which kind of gets in the
Yeah.
way, to be honest. Yeah. Let's talk about kind of your finding CAD and CNC. We'll see how this goes because that's probably a couple different chapters in your life, right? But how did you first get into CAD and design work? I imagine it's at university, but how did it click with you? I honestly, Scott, I think of you as, and dude, I know maybe some of the world's better CAD people. I think of you pretty high on that list. I'm not
Thanks, man.
trying to overinflate your ego, but tell me how those kind of started kind of popping off for
I
you.
mean, I like from the early 90s when the old 286 came out, I was obsessed with the idea of getting my hands on a computer. And
You were
so,
okay.
um, yeah, again, like it's a shame I didn't, and it's just because I didn't know or didn't have the people around me to show me that these things are possible. But it would have been cool at that early age to have got into doing more of that underlying coding and figuring out how computers work. But just I've had a passion for computers for a long time, right? So when I got to uni
Okay.
to study motorsport engineering, it was like, well, I need a computer. I need to design this stuff in CAD. Let's figure out how to use this stuff. So definitely, it was
Yeah.
I got a lot to thank Formula Student and Formula SAE for. And that's one of those things is having a project to sit down and be part of a team and learn from others, be inspired by others, to figure out how to do stuff with computers.
Shout out to all the school
Yeah,
teams, Formula Baja, all that stuff,
yeah,
robotics.
they're such important
Like
programs.
the world can't have
Exactly.
enough of those.
Yeah,
Yeah. Any of you young people listening, like just
yeah,
commit to that stuff. Figure out how to find the
yeah.
time.
Don't spend your
Yeah, that's
evenings
awesome.
get in there and do that stuff.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
worth it. It's worth it. That's interesting. Many of my friends see me as a computer geek. You know me well enough to know that I'm very much not. I'm
yeah,
a tools person, and there was a tool that I had to learn to do what I wanted to do. Yeah, I've always been intimidated by computers, to be honest. What pulled you towards CAM? So you were definitely,
yeah.
super CAD geek. We talked a little bit about it, but let's talk
Yeah,
about that a little
so
bit
when
more.
I got the job here in New Zealand, it was about 3 or 4 weeks. It felt in, maybe it was 6 weeks. It wasn't long after I started. The owner sat down everyone in the design office and said, "Hey, I've just bought this CNC machine, and we've bought this software with it.
Mm.
None of us know how to use it. Leon's going to be running it. Do any of you want to program this CNC machine?" And so I put my hand up and I was like, "Yeah, I did a G code class at uni. I've got this.
I've
I've,
got
I've
this.
got this
Yeah.
A4 sheet of G code somewhere,
Oh,
and
oh,
I'll give it a go."
that's
And
awesome.
so he's like, "Right, the machine's delivered in 4 weeks." So I was like, "Okay, all I need to do is figure out how to get a program made to run on this machine as soon as it's installed, and then I'll go from there." And so that was,
That's great.
one of the first moments. I think that was probably actually when I first got into forums, because I was like, now I have to learn how to use this product, and I just sat down and obsessed over it for 4 weeks, and yeah, and then worked closely with Leon, and that was one of the coolest things about that whole. And what I passionately believe is a CAM is like the glue that brings the workshop and the design office together, and starts to build
Yeah.
that understanding between the two departments. And yeah, so that's how I got really passionate about it. Um,
My shout out to my buddy Joe Lillard. He dropped a quote on me that blew my mind, that just popped into my head when you raised your hand. Never underestimate the power of never underestimate the power of I'm failing. No, okay. Never underestimate the power of misplaced
right,
confidence.
yeah,
And he was talking about, someone specific in our industry, but yeah, it's probably helped me in my career, and it sounds like that jumped you.
Yeah, sometimes in unconscious incompetence is a superpower.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good one too. What surprised you about like CAM and CNC the most?
How easy it
I'll
is
give
to
you a
make a
second.
mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man,
Um,
no kidding, huh?
you've really got to be,
No kidding.
and and through teaching people to do it, either uh, in my career in super yacht industry or later in the reseller channel, like some people just aren't cut out to do it. They just aren't.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
um, yeah.
that's a good one.
So that's the main thing, and then um, it's easy to. So what was the question again?
Just like what
Yeah,
surprised you about? I'll make it a double-sided CAM
yeah.
and CNC machine.
I
You kind of hit me in the face with a 2x4 with how easy it is to
yeah,
make a mistake.
yeah.
Yeah, keep going,
Um,
keep going.
I don't think I really had any expectations going into it, but I think it's kind of disappointing how much fragmentation there is in those industries, both CAM and CNC. The lack of
Yeah,
standardization across the board is it's one of its biggest weaknesses and frustrations. Um,
yeah,
and you know, not enough effort across all the people involved is being put into trying to fix that for the better of the industry as a whole. Um, so
yeah,
I understand, how it ended up being that way as well. But it doesn't mean that it's okay
yeah,
to carry on being that way. So yeah, and I guess like just seeing it more and more with this is kind of a little bit off topic, I suppose, but like with the democratization of CAM with products like Fusion, and seeing some of the frustration that people have in the community on Facebook groups and community forums, um, with the product is it's very easy to take for granted just how complicated those products are. Not you know
yeah,
the obviously the CAM software, but the CNC machines as well. Like it's
yeah.
insane when you really dig into how that stuff works, how many calculations and things are being considered along the way, that it's actually remarkable that that stuff's as reliable as it is. Yeah.
I've always had the customer's perspective of like, dude, I just want a X, right? And then working at Autodesk, I was dealing with the customers. They're like, I just need this. And like, they have no idea how many people are working
Yeah.
on this problem. Like,
Mm.
smart people. So, how easy it is to make a mistake. That's an issue. Like I wrote that down because that's, I try hard not to make the chips and tips about Toolpath, but when I think about what I expect of Toolpath and what I expect of us to bring to Toolpath is like computing should really make it hard for
Mm.
people to make mistakes, in my opinion. And I hope that's something that we're bringing, as
Hmm.
part of the Toolpath team. Um, so the next section, what pushed you towards data management? This blows my mind, Scott. I say it kind of funny, like, but Vault always kind of intimidated me. When I think of Vault people, you're one of them. It sounds like
So
I'm
so
fluffing you up a
how do
lot
you feel about
this episode,
lean
but
and Kaizen and 5S and all the rest of it in the workshop context?
ooh, oh, don't be turning this
Yeah.
back on me. uh, yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's actually a really good question because my last real job as a machinist, I managed a shop, started and managed a shop for L3 Communications. And in America, there's lots of funds for big corporations to like, uh, implement, Six
Yeah.
Sigma, Lean,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And L3 wanted to get a slice of that. So they were like, hey, machine shop needs to be lean, Six Sigma, go to this workshop. And I remember coming out of the first workshop saying to my boss, he's like, "Hey, did you learn anything great?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of like any tool. Like the better you understand it, the easier it is to apply the way it makes
Hmm.
sense for your business. And if you'll allow me the freedom to apply it appropriately to what we do, because what we do is not
Hmm.
assembling Toyotas on
That's
on
right. Yeah.
an assembly line. What we do is like put out satellite parts, in an insanely fast way, switch from job to job, like unreasonably often. And he just kind of like nodded and was like, okay. And he turned it back to like, but we need to show some results so we can get this
Mm.
funding or whatever. Uh, but I think any of these tools are great if you understand them and can apply them
Yeah.
to your business appropriately. Yeah.
So
Yeah. How the heck do you turn that
yeah,
back
because
to,
really data
you
management
know?
is that, but in the digital space, or it's a big part of it. Um, and
Okay.
so, like,
That's the first
yeah,
time I've heard that.
it's about making all of those assets and the things that you create that have value, um, well organized, and easy to access when you need them. Um, and they, like, in the design and engineering space, that designing any product is 30% of it is information collection and decision making. The other 30% of it, or let's call it thirds, the other third of it is actually, nowadays, is 3D modeling it, creating the 3D model, and deciding how it gets assembled and structuring that stuff properly. And then the last third is documenting it, and creating those drawings. Now, what will often happen is that, without data management, all those decisions that get made about each individual component that's designed, um, doesn't get documented properly or stored against the individual 3D parts and drawings. And so, um, or the decision will get made, at the beginning as they're doing it. It doesn't get documented, and then at the end of the process they end up having to document it and repeating some of that work, to find that information again.
Yeah.
We're trying to scrape through their memory banks. Oh yeah, that's why. And then write that down somewhere. So, Vault specifically, Autodesk Vault is a data management product for primarily for AutoCAD and Inventor. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, so it manages all those files properly. And it's, automation in the machine shops, the application of AI in CAM, all of that stuff is following a similar trend to what data management took in the design and engineering space. It's a harder sell in the beginning for some people, and then after a period of time, they may have dismissed it for years, and then after years later they're like, oh shit, like, I get it
Yeah.
now. And unfortunately, in a lot of those cases, that realization happens in the middle of chaos. And so, yeah, so
Yeah.
I was passionate about it and about process and trying to lock in, kind of the knowledge that was built up within the business from the guys and gals on the shop floor doing amazing things, and the reasons why they do things in certain ways, and pulling that back through into the design office and standardizing things so that people could come in and design products, and based on the system, not make mistakes because the system supports them through it. And that was why I got into the data management side of things so heavily. And you end up with
Okay.
like long discussions about part number and structures and all the rest of it. But it was cool. We're in a really neat space in that company where we were doing a lot of things for the first time in the industry, revolutionized. We actually completely changed the way that interiors get designed and manufactured and installed in yachts. And that's now the standard around the world,
That's
but we were
cool.
the first people to do it. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about how you went from that space where you're actually making real stuff. And this for me is like an incredibly important time. And for me, it was an incredibly important decision. Um, where you went from like making real stuff to moving to the software side of the world.
Yeah, so it was mostly because of that data management stuff. So there's not a lot of people who really understand the importance of it and how to pull it off. And again, just through being kind of ignorant and pig-headed, I suppose, sat down and learnt how to install and administer Vault, to made a lot of mistakes, to a good level, meant that the local Autodesk resellers were interested in hiring me. So that's how I ended up working at CAD Pro. And the history kind of repeated itself a little bit, because within 12 months, I think it was probably 6 months, Autodesk acquired HSM Works and were looking,
Oh, is
and then
that
looking
fast?
for master
Okay.
resellers around the world. They did a really good job of understanding that this was a specialist product that their traditional reseller channel didn't have the expertise to support, because they were CAD guys, not CAM guys. When I say guys, I mean guys and
Mm-hmm.
girls. And
Yeah.
so they were interviewing people around, or companies around the world, and they interviewed CAD Pro, who had a strong skill set in manufacturing engineering software.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Gavin, my colleague, had just built his own CNC mill in his garage from like a Segu Tech type thing. And I had
Yeah.
experience from industry on the router side of things. So they gave us the master reseller gig for Australia and New Zealand, and so we were responsible for driving adoption of HSM Works, and there was one user in Australia,
Yeah.
one user in New Zealand, and that was a whole fun time.
You're saying, did I remember right?
I
Roughly
think it was
6
about
months
6
after
months
you moved to
after,
CAD
yeah.
Pro?
So it was cool for me, because it was
Give me a
like,
rough,
I get to play
give me a
with
rough
metal
year.
again, because I get to leave wood
Yeah.
behind.
Give me a rough year.
Would have been
We're talking 2014, 2015 in
2013.
that window.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think was it
Okay.
9? So it was 9. Yeah, yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
I
2013.
guess that would have
September
been
2013 was when I
13, 14.
October 2013 was when I started at CAD Pro, which is actually weird.
Okay.
It ended up being
Okay.
exactly the same time of the year that I started at Toolpath, my next job. So I've only had 3. This is my 3rd professional job. So I've worked in my previous roles for long stretches of time, or the roles have changed in the 2 companies. So yeah, that was so it would have been like early. Yeah, they would have been, maybe it was only 3 or 4 months. It would have been, I think it was like February 2014. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's everything's about me, right? So I was putting that through, like, where was I? So I was when that was happening, I was a customer. I was a pretty avid HSM Works customer at L3 Communications. I remember the call when Al was honestly kind of freaking out when Autodesk bought HSM, and yeah, that's interesting. It was about a year later that a year and a half or so later that I moved over to Autodesk. All right, that answers that section. I think this is fun for me,
Yeah, it
Scott. I
is.
hope it's fun for you.
It's good.
Good. So now you're at CAD Pro, and you're a Vault guy. You're supporting Inventor, right? You were okay. And then bam, HSM, and now SolidWorks and HSM. How long? How many? Let's go with how many different countries are you supporting?
At that point, it was just Australia and New Zealand.
Okay.
Once I got into doing post processes, things expanded from there.
Yeah. How the heck did you become a post guy?
With some difficulty.
Dumb enough to raise your hand? Dumb enough to raise your hand?
I was kind of interested in it. And it was good because the scripting stuff is, it was more like the HTML stuff I did in the late 90s.
Okay.
So it was pretty, I don't know, it just seemed a lot easier for me to get into than the .NET stuff. And I think I'd matured a bit,
Hmm.
and just there was also solving real problems in the moment, some smaller ones initially and then bigger ones, and it was just fun to kind of do. And
Okay.
yeah, just learning with the product as it grew and the customers as they used it and grew with it as well. It was good, and just like open and frank conversations with the customers, being honest about our skill level and what we could and couldn't
Yeah.
achieve, and giving it a go.
And was it a requirement to have post staff
That's a, that's a
as part
good
of the
that's
Autodesk?
a good point.
Yeah,
There
think may
was
have been more.
a lot of initial training around that. Like there was an absolute expectation of anyone who signed up would have to get through and do this stuff. I think you were right there. But a lot of that training
Yeah.
kind of went
Yeah.
over my head. Um,
Oh,
and
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea was back then is that you would start your own post from scratch, from the ground up, read the post manual from beginning to end, and write your own post from
Uh,
nothing. And it wasn't long after that where I think the mentality shifted to having like a stronger post library. I suspect Al had a lot to do with that as well. And then you
yeah,
ended up
he
with like
did for
more
sure.
template stuff to work from, and yeah, yeah.
Okay. And you back then you had, I imagine you had pretty good support from Occam and some of the post people at Autodesk.
I'm feel terrible. Andrew,
Maybe not as much. Oh,
I can't, I'm friends with him
Andrew.
on Facebook. I should know his second name. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
British
exactly,
accent
Andrew.
guy. Restores
Yeah,
motorcycles.
exactly.
Sorry, Andrew. We both love
Unbelievable.
you. Yeah.
But yeah, it was him
Yeah.
mostly in the beginning. Yeah,
Ward,
Andrew Ward, that's it.
Ward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't interact much at all. I don't know if
Okay.
Arkin was around then. He may have been, but didn't
Okay.
interact with him much at all.
He was. Yeah.
But in later
Yeah.
years, Bob Schultz had a lot of lot
Mm,
of cool
I do.
conversations with Bob over the years. Debates backwards and forwards. Yeah, so
Oh, I would have loved to
it
be a
was
fly
cool.
on
One
those
of
walls.
the
Yeah.
coolest moments was trying to get a plastics manufacturer in Auckland to switch from Mastercam to HSM Works for their Thermwood 5-axis router.
Oh, yeah.
And
Should have been
you
no
know,
brainer.
we didn't have TCP support and stuff in the post properly, and that Thermwood
Oh,
router at the time, also they didn't have TCP on the control, but I think they released a beta version of it, and Carl Bass had it installed on his control. And so the very
yeah.
first kind of
Yeah.
like version of that needed some tweaks here and there, and I think you've alluded to doing some stuff around that. And it was cool back then to then be able to say to this customer, right, well, we're going to get this sorted. I'll come back to you in a week. Then a week later, say, we can run this on your machine if you want, but the CEO of Autodesk has just done this YouTube video for you showing your part running on his machine
Yeah.
using the post.
I was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
And
there. Yeah.
I've got the video still, it's linked still somewhere. Of, yeah, Carl running his machine for this prospect in New Zealand. It was just I
That's
already knew
awesome. That's
Carl
fun to hear that side
through
of
the
it.
Expert Elite stuff prior to that, but
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
cool moment. Yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I was there a few nights. Like, I mean, I was there one night where, he's sending to whoever was working on that. I think it was like Renee and Occam and several people. And the very first one, so he had a
yeah,
5-axis Thermwood in his wood shop. And I remember, I think the reply was like, "Are you kidding me?" Because it
yeah,
didn't start great. But that's awesome to hear that side of the story. Um, when I think about what you were doing at CAD Pro was actually quite a bit different than what I was doing, but our jobs were essentially help customers, find success
yeah.
with our tools, right? And one of the things I appreciate most about that time was the exposure that I got to just rad stuff that
Mm-hmm.
people were doing in their
Sure.
shops. And And I had been into some shops that, from the surface didn't feel very impressive. But if I have a superpower, I'm good at finding like, ooh, that's good. That's not good. But uh, so when I think of that, I was going to ask the question. Let me get to a question. You've been exposed to a lot of these shops. Like, what can you think of a pattern of like what successful shops did versus shops that were struggling?
Um, yeah, it's pretty clear. The ones that are successful always make sure they make the time to work on their business rather than in their business. And so in the
Yeah.
they recognize that by taking that amount of time periodically through the week or months or years that they can improve their business. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones are always too busy to do that stuff. And you can tell just when you walk in there, just how the place is organized and laid out as to whether what the mentality of the shop's like. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I agree with that.
that's pretty
Yeah.
much what it boils down to. But also like the curiosity that exists. So especially when you got in bigger
Yeah.
companies where they've got multiple departments, how little they talk to each other is actually fascinating. Um,
Yeah. Maybe that's a good cue for the next question is like, what do you wish shops and businesses took more seriously? Did you just
yeah,
answer
I guess so.
it?
They, I think the value of software, like, yeah,
Oh, that's
I think
interesting.
there's
Yeah.
there's there's a
Yeah.
far too many business owners out there um, that value, physical things on their shop floor above and beyond, services and software.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Yeah.
and will avoid. And I understand some hesitancy around it because you don't always get what you think you're paying for. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's way too many people who go out and buy machines and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on machinery and then do not factor in training and software purchases alongside that. And then the machine lands or
Hmm.
is about to land and they're like, oh, we need some software. And it's like, mate, like, and we want a approach that works. And you're like, we should have been having this conversation 6 months ago. Um,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I want to help you, but I'm busy, like I'll do my best, but it's going to take time. Um,
Yeah. The number of shops I was called into with a
yeah.
fire drill of bought the machine, it landed, nobody knows, doesn't have a post, whatever the U.S. Marine Corps bought 150 mobile machine shops, mobile CNC machine shops, big shipping
Hmm.
container machine shops. Uh, Never once thought about how are we going to actually run these
Yeah.
CNC machines until 2 years after they sat around not working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the machining, that's just a funny side story, but I think in the machining industry, people make things and they
Yeah.
appreciate
Sure.
hardware,
Yeah.
right? And it's easier to justify that big expense, but software is this like
Yeah. It's a
mystical
black
thing
box, right?
that it's hard to.
I think
Yeah,
that's
it's a
probably
black box.
changing
Yeah,
generationally. Yeah,
I do too. Oh, that's a good question. That's a
yeah.
good
There's
perspective.
some,
Yeah,
especially in the
yeah,
US, and there's more opportunity for younger people to kind of start up businesses and be successful there compared to doing that in New Zealand and to an extent in Australia as well. The risk seems higher to for younger people to do it here than in the US, just because the market
yeah,
opportunity is smaller. So
yeah,
definitely see that there's
yeah.
some amazing younger people in the US who are setting up shops and are like technology first, automation first, and it's inspirational for
Hmm.
others and myself to see that. So um, yeah, it's changing.
Yeah. I think about it pretty often when I mean, I dreamed, I still maybe, I won't, but I still dream like having my own shop. And Never had the balls to really do it, but when I was younger, it was like, $100,000 for a machine, $30,000 for
Hmm.
software, and it's fun to see how accessible things are now. You can list several machines, Tormach, something like that. It seems way more accessible. Fusion, way more accessible. Tools like Toolpath, all that. It's fun to see the outcome of that, right? Creative people doing creative things. It's fun for
Yeah,
me.
and honestly, now I mean, like with computing power, just getting like the power of laptops and phones and all the rest of it, along with tools like Gemini and ChatGPT. For anyone who's grown up with computers, can sit down and use those tools to create one-off software products that are bespoke to them,
Oh yeah. Oh, that's
to
before you
solve
think about,
like
yeah.
individual micro problems in their environment is pretty epic now. Yeah.
Yeah. I may have already shared it on this podcast, but I've told our team, not super widely, but I've said it to different people. Like the day Toolpath, really starts getting traction is when people start,
Hmm.
tweaking with it, and paid training just kind of starts
Hmm.
happening organically. I used to say the same thing about Fusion, and we had a user that went to ChatGPT and basically did some magical geek stuff, and essentially turned on 3
Hmm.
plus 2 machining with Toolpath, and I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, that's it. And then
Ben example's
Ben,
pretty cool as a
one of
soft
our
jaws. Yeah.
dude, Ben did the same thing, basically made a soft jaw generator. And it was pretty cool. That inspired our CTO Justin to basically polish that up, turn it into something that hopefully will be a deliverable
Yeah.
product someday. So that's interesting, Scott. I'm incredibly intimidated by
Yeah.
coding. I'll just say that. I've written thousands of lines of G code. I think I would struggle to make a simple drill cycle now. Um, but I have like 4 or 5 Arduinos and Raspberry Pis because I have lots of
Yeah.
ideas, and it's that initial like, oh man, I got to learn the whole thing. I should
Yeah.
start
So
poking with that.
the thing
I
that's
should start working with that.
the realization that I've come to in the last few weeks with some of the stuff I've been working on in the background is that I'll have a lot of ideas of how to do things, or like requirements for something. And
Yeah.
historically, then when you start working on it, it's easy to then forget that that was a requirement, or you had this idea and you end up, or like even if you've like solved a
Mm,
problem and you've forgotten about it, right? And you end up solving the same problem again in the future. Um, but working with
yeah.
ChatGPT, one of the things you can do is if you give it all those ideas at the beginning, or lay out what all of your kind of requirements are at the beginning, and then start working with it, when you forget or you contradict yourself, it it will remind you, or it will question you on that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you can use it as a way of like, because I mean, its memory's not infinite, but it's pretty bloody good. And so
Hmm.
it keeps you on track. And certainly
Yeah.
I think
That's a really good.
I don't think I do have ADHD, but I can imagine for people who do, like having that would be an
I do.
amazing superpower, to be able to have,
Yeah.
somebody that's not human that keeps you on task, pushing in a direction towards the
Hmm.
goal you set out at the beginning instead of getting lost along the way. Um, Bit of a tangent, actually. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately, that is my life. Is I do have
Mm.
ADD or something along those lines, and that's a really good point. I think of ChatGPT as like a really well
Yeah.
read assistant, um, and it helps me write my CNC West articles. And I mean, honestly, I broke my neck and back 8 months ago. Just going to have a conversation with my doctor like helps me organize my questions about my
Hmm.
results, and where I would be a little bouncing around a little bit. So it helps me organize my thoughts for these, these questions are my thoughts, but it helps me kind of organize, this
Yeah.
podcast a little bit. So speaking of that, I was looking through your LinkedIn, and I forgot about
Oh yeah.
ChipX. So why to talk a little bit about, I said at the beginning, you were importing, cutting tools and
Mm-hmm.
work holding, but talk a little bit about why you started ChipX.
It wasn't my idea. It was Gavin Bath.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Shout out to
yeah,
Gavin. I love Gavin.
he
Yeah.
was um, you know, I think it's fair to say that CAD Pro, myself and Gavin were, one of the main kind of vocal people driving, Autodesk CAM globally, and helping a lot and,
Yeah.
sharing
Yeah.
knowledge. And Gavin was a big part of that. He's stepped back from
Yeah.
CAM quite a while ago now, but at the time, probably about within 6 months of us starting that, I can't remember how he came across it, but he found out about Swift Carb, met Luke Swift, and mentioned to me that
Hmm. Shout
yeah,
out to Luke
yeah,
Swift. He's a great guy. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
mentioned to me that he was looking into starting to import Swift Carb tools from the States to sell them in New Zealand, and I was like, I want in on that.
Oh,
Can we go 50-50? And so it was a bit cheeky,
love it.
but he was like, yeah. And so
Sure.
we got stuck in, and then Gavin's really good at a lot of things, but I think he's said this a number of times about me, so I'm happy to share it here. Is that from a kind of creative ideation standpoint, I'm better than him. He will execute on stuff. So that's what happened. I was like, well, why do we have
Well,
to do
cool.
tools? Let's just get into some work holding and all the rest of it. And it dovetailed really nicely with the CAM side of things. We were learning about, what the tools did, which tools are better at some stuff than others, what work holding worked in some areas and not others. And just both of us were very open about and humble about our knowledge talking to machine shops in Australia and New Zealand, and just being able to
Yeah.
talk tooling and work holding along with CAM at the same time meant we learned faster and had more credibility. It also meant that we could
Cool.
get some leads to sell CAM through some of the brands we were selling, and vice
Yeah.
versa.
Yeah.
So it worked quite well, and we learned a lot.
That's great.
Did some crazy demos at places around
Yeah.
Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
fun to watch for me from the outside. It felt like you were learning, a
yeah.
whole nother world, part of the
And we
industry.
were the first
Uh,
place down here to have an e-store for that sort of stuff. Yeah, so
oh,
none
no
of the other
way.
vendors had e-stores. And yeah, so that
That's
was
awesome.
a big project, and we had like
That's
35,000
great.
line items on the website at one point because of all the it was insane. Like, it was completely over the top, but we had a really cool filtering system set up for all the Swift Card tool lineup, and it worked. It worked
Yeah.
really well. And again, there was nothing really like that at the time. It was all built on WordPress, and
You should you should help Luke
yeah,
out with that.
yeah. So
Uh, so totally cutting tools and work holding is super
mhm,
important for a shop. And my memory was like you were getting deeper and deeper into
mhm.
shops at the time. So I remember being excited for you and Gavin, like you guys are like learning a whole nother world of machining. Like what do you feel that experience taught you about shops?
How hard it is to sell tooling to shops.
That's interesting. It
Yeah,
is work. It is
work holding's
work.
easier
Yeah.
to sell.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that, yeah, you have to be the right kind of shop to buy premium tooling like SwiftCAD, for instance. You have to have the right type of work
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, also how passionate machinists are about individual brands. and the importance of
Yeah.
face-to-face interaction in workshops, and that's what we didn't have and couldn't really pull off with an e-store. So um it was, we both put in
That's interesting.
a couple of $1,000s each, and we didn't get into debt. We didn't don't think we burnt any
Awesome.
bridges.
That's great.
And yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Cool.
So
That's great. I gave some advice to a fairly young machinist customer of Toolpath recently. I've given him quite a bit of like cutting parameter,
yeah.
just help and feedback over the last couple of years, and I was disappointed in myself for not having given this point of advice to him earlier, and I just thought now would probably not be the worst time. I basically said, "Hey, I one of the smartest things I did young in my career was I didn't buy tools unless I knew I could call or get a hold of
Hmm.
someone to support it." Um, and I was like, I don't care what the best tool is. The best tool for you is the tool that has the best
Hmm.
support behind it. So I gave him some resources. Here's some people. He's down in Southern California. I'm up in NorCal. And I was like, get a hold of Western Tool, talk to their outside sales rep. It kind of gave him some different paths to take. A week later, he was like, dude, this is the best advice I was
Hmm.
ever given. And that actually made me reflect on conversations I had with Tim Schafer. I can name, a dozen tooling reps, like technical reps that I've built relationships with. And it was like, oh, that's where I learned about this. And so any young machinist, like, you should not spend 2 hours looking for a, 14 times, tool diameter drill. Like, you should be able to
Hmm.
text or call a sales rep and be like, this is what I need. Get it done while I go make some parts. And that was definitely life-changing advice for me. And that's where the e-stores are going to struggle,
Yeah, it's
right?
fine once you've got
Um,
again, like, it's a generational thing. Certain people would
yeah,
rather just not have to
yeah,
deal with a salesperson and just go and buy what they want. But Swift Carb, it's a premium cutting tool brand. It's not, um, you'd have to be
yeah,
like in a hotbed of, uh, industry that is machining exotic materials for it to work as an e-store. But
yeah,
Australia, New
yeah,
Zealand's not that. I mean, there's a bit more defense work and stuff in Australia, but it takes a lot of work. And it was our side hustle. So we couldn't be that
yeah,
person that they called and asked about the 14 times D drill, like, so,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah. So anyway, yeah.
yeah. Cool,
Mm.
cool. Is there any like misunderstandings of work holding or tooling that kind of stands out? Is that a fair question?
Yeah. Um,
Like what most shops kind of misunderstand about yeah, let's
I think
narrow it down to that. Like, what did you see many
I
shops
think
kind of misunderstand?
it's probably getting to the point where it's starting to be more broadly known now. Um, but I think that a lot of shops don't realize quite how impactful run out is on a tool, and don't appreciate the value of high cost tool holders. You get what you pay for.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, more money should be spent on holders, on good holders, before you spend it on high end tooling, high end cutters. Yeah,
Preaching to the
yeah.
choir there, Scott. I many people know I say it every time I can get it in, but I've got a Haas machine in my garage, a fairly old 2007, VF2SS. I have a lot of money
Mm,
in holders and
mhm,
tools. I I got a really good deal on the machine. I might actually have a similar amount of money
mm,
in tool holders and cutting tools. If there's something I appreciate, it's good work holding and good tools. Where else? Time is
yeah.
money. I mean, that's the reality. It's time is money,
I think
and
that
it's hard as the new guy to justify that premium tool
right.
and holder and work holding and all that.
Yeah,
But
like, you there's not enough budget allocated in new machine purchases for tooling, or at least holders, as there are in the same way as the software and services thing that I mentioned before. Yeah, it's always a balance, but like you
Hmm.
end up
Hmm.
you end up making your life more difficult. It's harder to manufacture parts, and your tools don't last as long because you haven't got good holders. Um, Similar
Yeah.
story for the work holding side of things, but it's less impact, less critical, I think, than tool holders.
Uh, Someone I used to work for when I had my own business, I did a lot of like turnkey stuff for people. Someone I respect tremendously. Also liked very nice machines. He said nobody's ever wished they bought a smaller tool
Yeah,
carousel, tool magazine, and nobody wished they bought the
yeah,
shittier tool. uh, he said when he bought a new machine that was like a high end machine, he figured about 25% of that in addition would go into work holding and tooling. Any of like just workhorse kind of three axis machines, some of the 2-axis lathes and stuff. He figured about
yeah. Wow.
50%,
Yeah,
as
right.
much as 50%. So yeah. All right, let's move on to Toolpath, Scott. I think we're getting fairly close to kind of wrapping it up. So I've
Yeah,
enjoyed this a
okay.
ton. Why Toolpath? Keep
Yeah.
it that simple.
I had kind of so CAD Pro is a great company. It's family owned. I wasn't going to go anywhere else in my career. I wanted to.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to build something, and I wasn't. We weren't really building anything at CAD Pro from a product standpoint.
Yeah.
Um, and I'd talked to Al Watmo a number of times over the years, kind of expressing my frustration around some of that stuff. And just saying, if you ever hear of
Yeah.
anything, blah blah blah. And I guess it would have been AU 2023. Yep, AU 2023. I met Justin and Scott Stein for the first time. Al introduced me to them to look at Toolpath. Um, and probably about a month later, jumped on a
Wow.
call, had a look at it. It's like, yeah, this is kind of interesting. I like the fact that it's leading. So that would have been in January, February timeframe, I think. When we looked at it properly, like the
Yeah.
fact that it led with the quoting and estimating side of things. I was aware of other AI CAM systems in the market that felt to me just like you know, ultimately will end up being just a smarter version of Feature Cam or CamWorks or like a
Yeah.
better templated workflow. Didn't seem big enough leap for me, but I love the fact that I love the fact that it started with the quote and made the most of the whole process, and it lent back to a lot of the principles we had at SMI doing the super yachts from the moment we had an RFQ come in, how heavily we leveraged all of that information right the way through to installing the interiors on the boat once we got the job. So I was like, there's something in this, and was happy to once it matured to represent it in Australia and New Zealand and sell it at CADPro. So this isn't a quick answer, but anyway, Al,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
We're not in the
and
lightning round.
then yeah, Al ended up being asked to become the CEO, and shortly after that, he said, "Hey,
Yeah.
so." Well, actually, before that happened, he asked me what my opinion was about Toolpath, and I said, told him what I thought. Um, I think he was surprised at how positive I was about it because I'm not shy of
Yeah.
sharing, yeah,
Scabs. Yeah.
constructive criticism of of products,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so he said, "Hey, look, if I've been asked to be CEO, if I take it on, would you like to come work for me?" Um, and so yeah, a couple of weeks later, he said, "Yeah, I've got it. Let's talk." Then he discovered partway
Cool.
through that a few months later that I'd actually been doing a lot of stuff with HubSpot, and Toolpath had just got that. So yeah, helped out Toolpath with HubSpot for a bit, leading into IMTS, and then got offered the job. And so yeah,
Yeah.
let's go build something and change the industry. Yeah, so process.
I had front row seats to that, and it was fun to watch. If there's one thing, many people know about Al, he's a people first kind of
Mm.
person. He bets on people, number one, right? So, um, yeah, that was interesting. I had a very similar experience. So I am very glad you're here. It's been a fun journey, and it's been fun, seeing the impact we're having on
Yeah.
our customers' lives. Is there, I'll ask this question. What are you most excited about Toolpath that you can share? Um,
Um,
some of these are cheesy questions.
no, to be honest, some of the things that really excite me as we go through this is just solving like the chamfer thing, right? So it used
Mm-hmm.
to be an absolute nightmare programming edge breaking, and then we ended up then Autodesk released the 2D chamfer toolpath with Fusion, which was awesome in itself, and then Debug came, a number of years later, which was even better in a different way. And then, what we've done by kind of analyzing the whole model in one go and understanding the tool geometry in the holder, and then being able to kind of turbocharge that 2D chamfer toolpath um, to the point where anyone using it then takes it for granted. Something that was really hard and annoying to do in the past is now you don't
Yeah.
even have to think about. And
Yeah.
those small wins over time add up to a lot, and it's just really fun seeing those things come through. And so, yeah, what I'm kind of talked about it earlier on,
A
what I'm
great
most
perspective.
excited about is having that kind of cascading effect build up through the experience of having to build and manage and maintain tool libraries and feeds and speeds, and having them apply to
Yeah.
your everyday. Yeah.
That's exciting. What surprised you most about coming to a software startup?
Um, I it's been quite emotional, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never doubted myself so much in my job and my
Mm.
capabilities as I have working.
Welcome to my
Like
life, Scott.
it's messed up, and it's taken quite a lot to wrap my head around. And I think that part of it's because Toolpath is full of world-class people. And I imagine I always had a dream of going to Formula One, right? Being an engineer in Formula One.
Yeah.
And I imagine that it would be that kind of environment. And not to belittle people that I've worked with before, but in the area, I've
Oh,
been the um absolute expert in my field in any company that I've worked in before, whereas now I'm amongst
yeah.
experts, right? And so I've had to change
Yeah.
what I've been doing on like major projects a number of times through the last 14 months. Um,
Yeah.
like, and I suppose my ego has taken a hit in some places because, and that's the downside to like data management stuff, is it's not showy. Like it's stuff that happens in the background that people don't even realize is happening necessarily until it breaks, and then
Yeah.
everyone knows that it's not working. And
Yeah.
so there's been a lot of that, and so I've just been like, yeah, wrestling with that, um, all those kinds of things. It's been,
Yeah. I'm
yeah,
glad you shared that. Uh, um, yeah.
but it's been good for me.
It's
That's
been a
been good
heck of
for
a
me.
ride.
You know,
Good.
it's
Good.
humbling, and it's made me better as a as a professional and as a person. I'd say probably, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's been fun. We've both grown tremendously
yeah,
since we've known each other, and it's been fun to watch you grow before Toolpath and after Toolpath. Yeah, agility, like agility is the theme. Hopefully our developers feel like their job is basically
yeah,
staying the same. but I would say most people outside of the development team, it's like agility is the theme, right? We have a world-class team is exactly the way I've said it
Mm,
for quite a while. Um, yeah, it's been fun to have the ability to pull us all together. I've really, really enjoyed the impact I've seen, us make on
mhm.
lots of our customers. So I'm glad you're a part of that team, Scott.
It's a privilege being part of it for sure. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's the first time that I've always enjoyed having variety in my jobs, and I've been lucky to have that privilege. But in the last 14 months, I've definitely seen, because of the kind of like heightened environment that, uh, well, higher pressure environment that we're in, shows up some of the negative sides of that quite more clearly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's been an interesting year for me. I had, my personal health stuff with, breaking myself and just honestly just watching our whole team. I was devastated
mm,
when it
we
happened.
all were,
And
mate.
there's
Yeah,
lots of
not as much
reasons,
as
but
you were, no
yeah,
doubt,
yeah,
but we
there's
all
lots
were.
of
Yeah,
honestly, one of the things I was most devastated with was like, man, I just let the whole team down. And then just seeing everybody just step in. Has been, something if you look
yeah.
close, you might see a tear in my eye. So let's move on before I get too sappy. I have a couple directions to go with this. I like to keep it around 2 hours, so we're around there. So um, I wanna talk a little bit about when I think of people that, are utilizing AI, feeling like they're playing with lots of different AI tools. You're one of the people I think about. So, let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll probably start
Hmm.
winding it down if that
Yeah,
if
yeah.
that works for you. You know, how if we go back, I was at Autodesk. You were supporting Autodesk when generative design. That was kind of like the first like artificial intelligencey kind of thing I was involved in. How do you feel like in the last handful of years, this wave of like AI is really changing things? It's a pretty open
Mm.
question. I just want to just kind of let you riff on, and what I really want to focus on is how do you see it really genuinely helping, the machine shops?
Well, I mean, I think that, um, yeah,
If I could cut in because I'm rude, if you can also think through it like with the lens of, I think a lot of our listeners still haven't really started
yeah,
utilizing AI the way maybe you have or whatever. Just some
yeah,
encouraging kind of kick
yeah.
in the pants thing
So
too.
back
I'll shut
back
up now.
when, Google first became a thing, it was quite hard to use Google search. Like, you'd type stuff in and you wouldn't get the responses you needed. And it took a little while for them to improve, but also for people to figure out how to use search and know what to type in to get appropriate results back. Um, the same thing is kind of happening with, LLMs, like large language model chat tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, and AI enabled AI mode in Google search. So, you really do have to kind of experiment with stuff around it. And there is a huge difference between, so my wife's been trying to use the free version of ChatGPT to do some stuff lately, and the results are pretty
Hmm.
terrible. And then I go and put the same prompt into, my paid version, and it's the result you expect. So that's the first thing. If you try
Yeah.
it, if you try the free
Yeah.
version and it doesn't give you what you expect, chuck $20 at it, give it a go for a month, and see the difference. And
That last part you said for a
yeah,
month and see the difference.
because
Yeah.
it is light years
Yeah.
apart. Um, it seems weird that they would give you a degraded experience as part of a trial, but anyway, it is, that is what it is. But it's cheap enough to give it a nudge.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the So YouTube has come along as a tool that's completely revolutionized, our industry and the ability to learn and get access information and improve yourself and improve your processes. These tools now just stack that on even higher, because you can ask why as many times as you want without annoying it. So
Yeah.
if you, doesn't matter what it is, you can ask it a question. I mean, you have to fact check this stuff, and it's getting better at giving you resources. You can go and check it out and make sure that it's not lying to you. But you can grow with it, right? And it does learn from you, especially in the paid version. Our capacity to learn as humans now with these tools is absolutely insane. It was already, the internet already made it incredible. This has just made it even more so. Because it's like, so it doesn't matter what it is in your life. You can got to be kind of somewhat conscious about how much resource it takes to use these things. Like a simple search, just use Google. But if it's a deeper question that you want to riff on, then you get a huge amount of value out of it just using it and interacting with it.
Where do you think for your average machinist it's most useful? Just AI is a very kind of generic term, but like most useful for machine shops and machinists today.
I mean, it's easier to use it's easier to use it to find answers to questions about software you're using rather than going through the help files as a starting point.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And then if you are a business owner or operator or manager, then any kind of process type stuff or concepts that you want to wrap your head around, then having that conversation with it, even voice through your phone. There's, I don't know whether you've mucked around with it much, Tim, but when just talking to it is pretty well, it's kind of creepy, but also awesome. Yeah.
Okay. I think about, I've got lots of projects in the garage, and there's times where I'm working on something and I'm like, man, I wish Scott or almost anybody could be here just to chit chat with this problem real quick. And I find myself kind of using it like that. All of us, especially we work remote, it's pretty easy to Slack people and stuff during the day, but sometimes it's so nice to just have a real quick sanity check with it. That works great. Toolpath, anybody who's not a Toolpath, trialer or subscriber, I would definitely say that hunting thing is what struck me recently, was not having to go hunting for problem geometry and matching tools and all that. I'm finding myself now, so after I broke my neck, for anybody that doesn't know, my role's changed a lot. I spend a ton of time in my shop, actually testing and breaking Toolpath, and it's been fun for me. I'm annoyed now if I wasn't using Toolpath, so I'm not here trying to really over promote Toolpath, but it's fun to see how much it's changed my
that's right.
my workflows.
You've taught many classes, as have I, and hosted webinars and all the rest of it, and that there's people in the room who have got questions who are too shy to speak up and ask them, either because they don't know or they want to challenge your opinion. These tools give those people the ability to ask those questions without fear of looking silly or whatever. I was going to go somewhere else with that now, but I've completely forgotten where I was going with it. But that's a big deal for a lot of people. My advice is just play around with them. Try different ones. Not, maybe ChatGPT isn't for you. Try this Claude from Anthropic, Gemini, ChatGPT. There's Grok. There's lots of them out there now.
That's a good piece of advice that I've actually been meaning to kind of explore more. One I will give is, it doesn't take very long to do a little bit of learning about prompting, right? That's easy. I'll let you guys go figure that one out. All right, let's get into advice for shops, right? I always think about giving advice as like a funny thing. But you've seen shops succeed and be very successful. You've been a part of helping those shops. And I'm certain you've seen some kind of flounder and unfortunately probably even go out of business. If you were starting to shop tomorrow, what would be on top of your mind?
I think being as prioritizing what I wanted to spend money on. So what stuff I needed to spend on quality and what other stuff I could let slide would be a big
Yeah.
thing. Uh, yeah, and if it's specifically
Yeah.
if you're just
Yeah.
getting a machine to machine some parts, then it's the holders. Make sure you get some good holders. Yeah.
Or, yeah, I'm a big believer in that. All right, let's wrap it up a little bit with our world's becoming more and more automated, right? Which is super fun for me to see. I've seen 5-axis go from very random, almost never saw them. I mean, I can think of like the first shop in the Sacramento Valley that got a 5-axis machine to now, like I know shops getting 5-axis pallet pull machines as their first
Hang on a
piece of
second.
CNC equipment. Our industry is becoming more and more automated. I can remember the first 5-axis machine in Sacramento Valley. Now I know shops that for the very first machine, they're getting a 5-axis pallet fed, machine. So as that like automation and productivity kind of increases, what do you see being more like what skills do you see being more and more important?
Yeah, human judgment. We've talked a
Yeah.
little bit about
Yeah.
not wanting kind of creativity to be automated, but the reality is a lot of these tools can be highly creative, and more, and some
Yeah.
humans aren't
Okay.
creative at all, right? And so having these tools allows them to become creative, but taste and judgment are two things that I think um, I mean, it's getting better with some judgment stuff. I don't think it will ever really have the concept of taste, but for us, the ability to
Mm-hmm.
stand back and look at it across across the big picture in our context in real life, and being able to make a judgment around whether it's good or bad or the right or wrong thing to be using in that context is something that would be extremely hard, or if not impossible, to automate um, in the future.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I think I said earlier, like creativity, and my self-assessment. So take that for what it is, but I'm a
Yeah,
pretty creative person. So I've kind of wrapped that around myself as like my
yeah,
comfort blanket, right? That's an
yeah.
interesting one. I
I
like that
I
answer.
had thought a lot about this in the past year, but I mean, Al's mentioned the tactile world becoming more and more important. But like, if I was just watching a video the other day about where Boston Dynamics are at now with their Atlas robot, and they've got them working in the Hyundai factory in North Carolina now, on some stuff.
Okay.
And you watch them work, and you're like, yeah, okay, whatever. But the thing
Yeah.
is that they are getting more and more dexterous, right? So
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
AI has superpowered their learning ability, and so um, there's aspects of that tactile world that they will end up automating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Okay, let's wrap it up. I like to close with a few kind of different things. So outside of work, what are you most excited about? You doing anything fun, planning anything, working towards anything?
uh,
Kind of double question. I'll just give the second follow up to that. Like, yeah, also outside of work, what's taking up
yeah.
your
So
time off
um,
lately?
I fitness has kind of taken a bit of a backseat in the last probably 2 years. The last sort of 6 months at CAD Pro were pretty intense,
Interesting.
and then and Toolpath
Okay.
have been, there's lots of stuff that I didn't know how to do that I've had to spend a significant number of hours learning, which meant that I couldn't go and keep on top
Yeah.
of my fitness and health. So I've been doing that more. One of the things I've been pretty excited about is I've never really been that kind of muscly, and
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always been pretty slender up top, but I've been going to this kind of hit workout round doing, it used to be called 9 rounds.
Oh,
So there's
good.
like 9 rounds of exercise. You just turn up, do as you're told, do the exercises, do a bit of boxing, a little bit of kickboxing stuff. Not if there's any kickboxers out there, you'd
Interesting. Cool.
absolutely laugh at what. Yeah, it's not kickboxing, but it involves using my legs and my fists.
Kickbox exercise. Yeah,
Yeah,
kickbox
yeah.
exercise.
Some
Yeah.
bag work, and I've the other week done more pull-ups in one go than I've ever done in my life. I think, and I surprised myself, and that was the
Nice.
coolest thing because it's one of the things that I've always wanted to be. You get worst nightmare, you slip off a cliff and you can't pull yourself back up. Like, how bad would that
Oh
be?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I've never been able to do more than 3 pull-ups. In April, I could barely do 1, and
All right.
then the other week I did 2 sets of 5 without too much trouble, and I was just like,
Nice.
just blew me away. Just those incremental gains and improvements over time,
Yeah.
just through being consistent, and that applies to
Yeah.
work life with learning as it does with physical stuff. So I've been really enjoying that.
That's awesome.
And it's also helped me kind of like repair my legs a bit from not looking after them enough when I've been doing big Ks. So I'm starting to get my running back as well, which feels fun. I'm looking forward
Got
to
it. Got it.
getting back to the stage of being able to take on my 5K PB again. It's 1806, and I've got to get it below 18 into the 17s when it's that close before I get too old to do it. So yeah, that's my big goal for the next.
I think I've accepted that
Yeah,
running. I think I've accepted running's never in my future again.
it's one of those things where you've been like really crap at it all your life, and then you end up turns out you're actually pretty good at it if you
Yeah.
apply yourself. And the
Yeah.
feeling of running fast is addictive. So yeah,
Yeah, it's been fun watching you get into running. Way more
yeah.
than get into it. You've got some young adults in your
I do. So
household now?
that's the other thing is, we've moved down to the
Yeah.
South Island, in New Zealand, so we're closer to the mountains. So I'm really looking. We just got some season passes for me and the kids to go skiing often this winter. I'm really looking forward to that,
It's
and
awesome.
I hope that by the end of the winter they're like hooked and not over it. So
Cool.
I'm really
Cool.
really excited about doing that with the kids. Yeah,
Cool. So if there's one thing I've learned is that most young adults want nothing to do with elder advice. So I always think about like, well, what would I give if I was giving me advice when I was their age, what would I be giving them? So give me that. Let's pretend they were listening, and someday they'll register. If you were giving, let's say 18, 19, 20-year-old
oh yeah. I
Scott some
mean,
advice.
that I think I'd go back to what I was saying earlier about the coding. Um,
Mhm.
you don't need to know how
That's
everything
good.
works. It's good to be curious, but don't let that get in the way of achieving things. And I
That's a
think
good one.
that also applies to a lot of people. When they go out starting up a business, like if you overthink it too much, you'll never get started. And so I think
Yeah.
I think that would be the main thing I would have said to 20-year-old myself.
That's a good one. I heard it way too late in life, but it was what's the saying? Don't let perfection
Yeah,
get in the way
yeah,
of good. Uh, I was like, damn it. Why didn't
yeah,
somebody
yeah,
tell me that? 'Cause I spent my young adult life like if it's not
yeah.
perfect, it's not good enough. And that got in the way of a lot of
Yeah,
things.
I
So
think they are different
um
things. It's a good point, but I think it's a different thing because in that case, you're thinking about too many reasons why you shouldn't do it instead of just giving it a crack. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, life ain't that
yeah,
easy, right? Because I can also say like I've had some amazing life experiences, and a lot of them were because I was the obsessive
yes,
person about,
yes,
something. Yeah. So,
that's
life
exactly
is
it.
a balance.
That's
It's a
right. You
funny
still
little
need to be
balance.
curious,
So,
but don't let that get in the way of giving it a
yeah.
nudge. Yeah.
All right, Scott. I think I love your story. I hope everybody else appreciates your story as much as I always have. Let's wrap it up where if anybody isn't following you now, where would they go to find you, follow you, that kind of
These
stuff?
days it's annoyingly Moyse Scott instead of Scott Moyse. Somebody else has got that handle on Instagram. So Moyse Scott, Moyse. And then on LinkedIn is pretty much the only places I hang out. Oh, and also the
That's
the
awesome.
Fusion Facebook user group. I'm on there quite often, keeping an eye out and
Yeah, I see
moderate
that
that.
quite a
So
bit.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. You're a moderator. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time and your story, and as always, your
Thanks for the
friendship. So,
opportunity and to chat about it. And
yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
hopefully people enjoy listening to it.
Well, I'm certain they will.